Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Broker Daily, where I dive deep into different subjects of New York City real estate with my team of experts. Today, I welcome back real estate attorney Ira Gold. Hey, Ira.
Hi, Ed. Good to be back again.
How are you today?
I'm doing well.
Appreciate your time so much. Thank you so much, Ira.
You're welcome.
So today we'll jump into a subject that I talk about with my sellers, and it sometimes has to do with pricing. It's called mansion tax. Mansion tax. So of course we have mansions in Manhattan, but this tax applies to every purchase that's over $1 million. And it is actually a tax that is imposed by New York City, and there are certain percentages over $1 million that ladder up. The higher the price, the more tax that you pay. And it's important for pricing when we price apartments that we have to take into consideration with our sellers, but the buyers will be aware that it's extra money that they have to pay. So when we're around that $1 million mark with pricing, we have to be very careful and be cognizant of that mansion tax. So we'll dive in with it with you. Ira, please explain to us the little details and big points on mansion tax.
Okay, great. The mansion tax is a misnomer because it would be very difficult in the state of New York, or particularly in New York City, to find a mansion for $1 million. But I believe it was enacted in the 80s under Governor Mario Cuomo to raise revenue. And as it was originally put forward, and for many years, any property over $1 million, the state would collect 1% of the purchase price. So if you had $1 million property, then that's $10,000 to the state. If you had a $999,000 property, the state does not collect the mansion tax. So that's the delineation. Now, in recent years, the state, needing more revenue, created a graduated scale so that from $1 million to $2 million, you would be charged 1%. Over $2 million, it goes up. It's 1.25%, and it keeps graduating up as the price goes up. The important point, or one of the important points about the mansion tax is it is almost always paid by the buyer, not the seller, although that can be negotiated depending on market conditions. But it's usually a buyer-paid tax.
Right. It's interesting when buyers see that tax, and sometimes in smaller buildings, the co-op or the seller, they won't really say who has to pay it, and it becomes like a flip tax, which we can talk about another time as well. So, but yeah, you're right. It is paid by the buyer, and sometimes it can be negotiated, because if it's $1 million and it's a sale, or it would be $1,001,001. Is that right, Ira, or is it $1 million right on the dot for the mansion tax to kick in?
$1 million.
So it's $1 million, right? So
Correct.
if it's $999,000.99, we're not paying tax, right?
You're not paying tax as long as, that's the legitimate price. I mean, like all taxes, there has to be a bright line somewhere. So that's the bright line. If you're that close, the state taxing authorities might raise an eyebrow and might take a look a little deeper after you close to make sure that was legitimately the amount of the consideration or the purchase price paid to the seller. But the bright line is $1 million.
Right. So we have training, and I've been trained, and our executives here at BHS and other brokers, we talk about this, because the $1 million mark is we can get there. And sometimes people, I've heard, we want to avoid any problems for our sellers or our buyers. And when this $10,000 comes up, sometimes people have tried to hide it, right? They're like, okay, well, let's put it deep into the contract as a credit, or find some other way where we don't have to pay this mansion tax. And we're advised not to do that. It's a tax. You're at that point. If it's $1,001,001, you have to legitimately reduce, the seller has to reduce the price for the buyer. I'm not sure of any way to really get rid of that. Have you ever seen or had any negotiations with anyone that has tried to hide that, lower the price to get rid of the mansion tax? Has that ever happened to you, or
I
have
mean,
you? Or is it,
there
or
are
is there,
always people that want to try and avoid a tax.
yeah, I would too, but it's
I
not
mean,
advised.
right, but there's the right way and the wrong way, and I'll always advise a client not to play games,
Mm-hmm.
not to engage in funny business. It's going to come back to haunt you, because if in fact you try to hide the real amount of the purchase price and you get audited, there will be penalties, there'll be interest, it'll cost you more, and you'll have some problems that really are not worth what you're doing. So if a property is being negotiated and the legitimate value is, let's say, $1 million, but the buyer doesn't want to pay the mansion tax, then if the seller wants that buyer and the buyer wants to do the deal, then you can make the price $999,500, $900, and you take the loss or take the win, however you want to characterize it. But it's never a good idea to bury things in contracts to try and fool a taxing authority. I would not advise any client to ever do that.
Right, and all those documents are readily available, to the city of New York, as in ACRIS, where all those documents are filed in the New York State Department of Finance website. So,
And in fact, Ed, for most deals in New York, I forgot the exact number, but it really, in New York, it's almost all deals in New York City. You actually, when a seller sends the transfer taxes into the city to be recorded, you have to provide the contract. So the contract of sale is readily available for review.
mhm.
And if the taxing authority see a purchase price of $999,999, they might decide, well, let me take a peek. Let's see what's going on.
Right, right. Ira, mansion tax. We're good with that. I appreciate your time. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time on Broker Daily. Have a great
My
day.
pleasure, Ed. You too.